All right, the doors are closing. You are mine now. Okay, welcome, everybody. Thank you for making it out this morning. I know it's kind of early on a Friday, MAGFest being 24 hours as it is. But welcome to Donut Steal, creating an original character. Most people, OC, do not steal, that sort of thing. That's where the joke comes from. Over this panel, we're going to cover a number of things. We're going to start with a character from scratch, work on things like character appearance, personality, and role in the story and how that works. Character evolution and development, obviously, going from point A to point B over time. Let's see, we're going to look at what makes a villain and all that entails. Meaningful flaws and their importance. Handling the dreaded Mary Sue character. Looking at character inspirations and designs, and of course I will have time for open Q&A because it's a whole hour, and usually I can burn through this in about half an hour or so. Okay. So we're going to say, how do we build a character? So usually we would start with a concept, either written or illustrated, or just kind of an idea that you have formulated at the top of your head. Determine where they fit into your story narrative. You want to create an independent character arc that also kind of goes along with the story, but is also kind of separate from it, like a side point or a side plot or something. Don't forget to include some meaningful flaws to overcome, because a flaw is one of those things that kind of gets in the way and usually won't it usually will prevent the character from resolving their entire story arc. And then, of course, as you go along, develop and refine your ideas as the narrative unfolds. Because sometimes your best laid plans and the start of things don't always end up the way you do as the story evolves. It's like, I have to change this about something, and I have to change that because the plot has gone in a direction I hadn't intended. It's normal, that happens. So who is this? Okay, so this is Valexa Rip Tekenvier, one of my players' characters who I asked to borrow for this segment. She's a grave cleric tasked by the Celestial of Death to ensure that the dead stay that way. Nobody knows her name, she just goes by Rip. She's sarcastic, disagreeable, and not a team player. She only goes along with her party because her patron tells her to. Completely blind from a young age, she often walks into things or off ledges unless supervised, and she hates being supervised. Through many shared experiences, she warms up to the party and learns to work with them. So she kind of going from this kind of disaffected loner, which is always one of those things that shows up at your D&D table from time to time, someone who just doesn't want to associate with the party but still has to go along with them, because they might as well be at a different table otherwise. But this particular player was very good at kind of getting them to adapt to the party by being standoffish at first, and then occasionally needing some help, like being pointed in the right direction, or prevented from fishing them out of water, or if they fall off something. But those steps of kind of like getting a character, her design was based on her character from Baldur's Gate 3. So she's like, I want to do this. I kind of want to work with something that's like with death, and kind of wanting to understand that death has meaning. Death gives life meaning, and life is the reason death has any significance. So I kind of worked with that to work with kind of that idea going forward through the story. Okay. So character appearance, personality, and role. What do these have to do with the character design? Well, starting with one of them will often affect how the others work. A character's appearance may affect their personality or the role they play in society. Their personality may reflect their appearance or their role in society. And of course, their role in society may affect their appearance and personality. They kind of all mesh together. But you do have to kind of combine them in order for them to kind of make sense. You can use inversions, but use them sparingly. Because if you continuously invert things and kind of change things around, people will expect it, and then obviously you become a little predictable And half of being a good storyteller or a dungeon master, things like that, is to keep your audience guessing. Keep what works, but save what doesn't for other ideas. Yeah, Lord knows we have a great idea, and we work with a particular idea, and we put something together. It's like, oh, this would be really great, but it's not for this character. So I'm going to have to take that, I'm going to put it in a little container and hold on to it, put it in the refrigerator for a little bit, and then break it out when something more fitting comes out for it. Subtle design choices can lead to surprising depth. So something is simple, I'll show you in the example, but something very simple can give you an insight to a character that you may not realize, that others can pick up. And then you can look really smart even though it wasn't intentional. Sometimes it happens. And most importantly, seek feedback from people you know will be honest in critique. Not harmful, obviously, because they're people you trust and you say, hey, I would like your feedback on this. And it goes two ways. If you're the person seeking feedback, know that it's coming from you. You can pick who you solicit feedback from, so pick that person you know is going to be honest but also fair. And if someone approaches you asking, hey, what do you think of my character? Again, ask questions, approach from understanding and fairness. Because it could be something like really horrendously bad, of which I have in this panel. And then soliciting feedback could be something simple as, you might want to take another whack at this from either the ground up or changing certain aspects and seeing how that would affect the person. But obviously you want to come from a place of positive intent. Because the last thing you want to do is, burn a bridge because this person can't think their way out of a paper bag. Or at least you think that they can't. So, our two characters that we have here, we're going to start with Nadia. So, Nadia's clothes are tattered in places, but her boots are well kept. As anyone knows, a good pair of boots, especially in a fantasy setting, considering you're often walking everywhere, especially through dungeons and other things, having good boots, they're worth their weight in gold. So, like I said, subtle details. Her clothes are tattered and ripped and torn, but she has good boots because she knows the value that they have. Hidden depths. She has hand wraps, a tied black belt, and wild tied-up hair. Her pose and expression are confrontational, and she has many scars. Mostly warm colors and a simple design. Her player describes her as a wandering tavern brawler with fire magic, hence the warm colors. I am not the best artist when it comes to these. I just didn't really put the fire in there. It just didn't seem... nothing came out to me at that point. But that sort of thing is just like use color, use everything from pose to personality. And as you can see, she looks like she's walked a rather long and lonely road. And these things involve a lot of, obviously, confrontations and trying to find places to kind of hang your hat at the end of the day where it's safe. But has a long arc of kind of learning how to kind of figure things out and work alongside people. Another one of those disaffected loner characters learns to work together. But her appearance and personality and her role in the story all kind of work together because her appearance gives way to her personality. She's kind of like a brusque, to the point, very direct character. And her role in the story is that she kind of wanders from tavern to tavern, throwing fights and coming up against people with weapons and having to fight them unarmed or with the fire magic she has. Conversely, we have Valentina Mantleford. Already we have a name that sounds much more upper class. She wears a chain dress with some plate armor and carries a sword and shield. She has makeup tied into a braided ponytail. Her pose is graceful, poised. Her expression is pleasant. Her colors are cooler but have gold accents. Her player describes her as a noble-born fighter who is swift and agile, capable, and also pretty. So, very much her opposite. Very much Nadia's opposite. She has a much more pleasant and refined appearance. Her posing is much more elegant and dramatic. The two of them become kind of like rivals over time because one is the rough and tumble tomboy and the other one is the the prim and proper one. But they, through their butting of heads, they come to a common ground and work together. Okay, character evolution and development. Why we're watching in the first place. Most characters change as events unfold in the story. Not every character does change. You have characters like Goku and Luffy who tend to be very static as they go through. They don't really have arcs that change them, but they work around people that have arcs that do change. Show how the character changes through action and reaction to events that unfold. Bad things are going to happen in your story. Maybe small, maybe big. But how those characters react and what that affects in them is important to show. You can tell somebody something about a character, but showing them is just so much more potent, resonates much more with your readers or those of you at the table, and kind of pushes the characters along and kind of forces them to evolve. And speaking of which, force them from their comfort zones. This is one of the biggest things to change a character. Something is going to put them in a position where they have to adapt to survive or perish. And since very few people want to see characters die as a result of their own inability to change, it's a self-preservation tactic. Most characters be like, well, I need to straighten up. I need to learn to do this skill. I need to master this ability, or else I or my friends are in serious trouble. Keep track of how they change to maintain consistency. Always important. Consistency is key in a lot of things. But keeping track of how they change, because sometimes they may go in a direction you may not have initially thought of. And that happens. Keep notes, write things down, be it for a story or be it for any sort of Dungeons and Dragons tabletop or Pathfinder or any kind of tabletop game. Work with your DM. Your DM will work with you. Believe me, I know. I'm not wearing all the Dungeon Master stuff for show. Back it up. So the last point I had on that was, don't be afraid to be mean to your characters. It's okay. It is perfectly fine to have bad things happen to them. Bad things happen to all of us. But it's what is the major driver of change and forcing them to kind of adapt and overcome the hardships that they face. Give them things, but also take things. Sometimes you'll take more than you give, and that tends to be more of a dramatic story because they have to kind of continuously change and evolve to the point where if you take too much, they'll just give up and just kind of roll over and die. And very few people really want to read a story about that. But the human condition is about kind of rising to the challenge and being pushed to do better and do more and do things you don't really want to do. So this guy here is Quentin Highland. He's descended from powerful sorcerers and is a recent Academy graduate. So, kind of like a golden child, sort of very kind of bookish character, as again shown by his glasses and his kind of willowy, wispy figure. He has a lack of practical experience and makes him nervous and cowardly, but he's thrust into adventure all the same. Again, being descended from powerful sorcerers will put high expectations on you. His cowardice starts off as mildly annoying until it ends up getting innocent people hurt. It's the traditional Uncle Ben, I didn't do this and now Uncle Ben is dead. How unfortunate that it keeps happening. But it isn't until one of his allies is seriously injured protecting him that he realizes he has to change. So he for a long time, cowardly works. Kept me alive, kept me going up to this point. But now someone I care about, someone who really I have a great connection with, is now lying there on the ground. And it's my fault. And now I need to realize that, internalize it, and then let that push to improve. I touch this very lightly because it tends to jump more than one. So the rise of a proper antagonist. Every good story will have a villain, whether that's a person, place, thing, or even something as malevolent as the elements. Villains are often the reason a plot happens at all. Because without a villain, who's going to upset the status quo? Who's going to make everything all hunky-dory and suddenly not? They're driven by a reasonable motivation that incites the heroes to action. Now, it could be something as simple as, my goals are very personal. I want to conquer the world because I think I'm the only one fit enough to rule it. Then you also have things that are just, I had a bad childhood, and I'm going to make that everybody else's problem. A good villain will have like something that drives them to do what they're doing. And whether or not it makes sense is entirely up to the character to decide. Most importantly, in my personal opinion, villains do not have to be likable or redeemable. That seems to be a popular trend we've seen in media these days, where villains have to be sympathetic. We have to be able to understand their goals or their ambitions or why they do what they do, and they can be saved. They should be saved. Not entirely. You can do some very heinous things, and no one owes you forgiveness. Your villain should be not. It depends. There's a spectrum of how redeemable you want them to be, and that comes down to your personal preference and what you want them to do in a story. You could have a villain choose to be someone who is genuinely repenting for their sins and joins the party, and then they could do that and also stab them in the back later, because they're still a villain at heart. But you could also have villains who are simply malevolent for the sake of it. I'll get into the example in a little bit, but not every villain has to be this wooby that is just dealt a bad hand and just needs love and compassion to turn around. As long as the villain believes what they're doing is right, they will carry out their plans. Subtle thing, but powerful thing. They have to believe in what they're doing, or else they wouldn't do it. And that's one of the key factors of keeping a villain interesting, is that they take what they believe is right to an unhealthy extreme. Because anything in excess can be harmful, even beneficial things. And of course, as per your story, the heroes should be the last ones to know the villain's true intentions. Foreshadow it, subtly hint at it, so your readers or your audience can pick it up. But ultimately, the heroes who are part of the story and part of the narrative should ideally be the last to figure out what's really going on. Because that puts everybody in the 11th hour and leads to kind of like a swell of it leads up to a climactic moment where the powers collide. So this is the Queen of Nightmares. She seeks the extracted magical energies of spellcasters to further enhance her own powers and allow her to physically manifest in the material plane. So she conscripts hunters to do the heavy lifting, providing them with anti-magic tools, because it's a lot easier to kill a wizard and steal their magical essence when they can't incinerate you with a fireball or teleport out of your traps. She aims to destroy the border between the dreamscape, where she lives, and the material plane to command her shadowy hordes to usher in her kingdom of nightmares. So, she has a clear goal, and she has the means to achieve it. And of course, she believes she's right, because this is the idea that she wants to follow, because she believes that she should rule as a queen over the material plane. But she needs power to do so. So avoiding the Mary Sue problem. I'm sure this is a fun little topic for everybody. So Mary Sue is not just a character I don't like. There's layers to it. Mary Sue has no flaws, never fails, has all the cool stuff, and the plot primarily serves them. They get all the hero moments, the big speeches, all the cool things that, even if it doesn't fit their character, I want to give it to them anyway, because they're the hero, and they can do no wrong. Flaws come in 3 major types: fake flaws, informed flaws, and genuine flaws. So fake flaws are things that are not really flaws at all. Oh, my character's too strong. They can't seem to, hold things without crushing them. My character's too pretty. Everyone falls for her. Oh my goodness. This just they are just positive traits spun in a way to sound negative when they really aren't. Informed flaws are flaws that are legitimate, but they don't show up in the story. I'm terrified of spiders. There are no spiders in this story. They don't appear. My character's afraid of drowning. Well, we're going nowhere near water. So these are flaws that are here to tell the reader that, oh yeah, my character's hardly perfect, but they're not leveraged. They're not put in the way of a character's arc that either gets resolved or overcome, or persists until the character leaves the story unresolved. Make sure they have a character arc that encourages them to change. Again, you can have characters who struggle with things. It's okay. You can be mean to them. Give them something that they don't immediately solve, or something they have to grapple with and need help. Something that directly ties to what they're bad at, and something they have to either learn from their allies or their friends, not get right on the first try after getting help from them, because few people do, and it's more interesting that they struggle with kind of similar things as the story progresses, and to show that over time they're slowly getting it. Bits at a time, learning each step along the way, to show that they don't master things right off the bat. Keep track of your character's cool stuff, and ensure they fail in ways that matter. Again, being mean to your characters is ensuring that they fail in ways that matter. Have that character who's afraid of drowning be stuck on the shore while their ally is obviously drowning. And then they have to kind of confront that fear and either just jump in and struggle but eventually save their friend, or shut down and require someone else to step in and take care of it. Remember, positive coincidences are cheating. What this is, we need to find this MacGuffin, this thing that we need to find. Oh, here it is. It's right here. How coincidental. So, negative coincidences are the best kind. It's when we're searching. We need to find the MacGuffin. We need to find, there's the enemy. How convenient. Roll for initiative. So, keeping your coincidences as ways to challenge your heroes, that the villains happen to show up at the right time, or the item that they're looking for happens to be sold out. How coincidental. So this guy here is Ike Bronzehammer. Ike is his player's quote author avatar because he couldn't bring himself to say self-insert. He has a gun, not just any gun, a revolver, as a rule of cool artificer weapon. Artificer? A unique and, of course, modified weapon. His character arc involves traveling the land, writing down all the history he sees. Calls himself the lore keeper. That's great, but where's the arc? How does he change? What prevents him from changing? He has fake and informed flaws. He's considered a genetic anomaly. He's a half-dwarf, so half-human, half-dwarf, or half-something half-dwarf, born from 2 human dwarves. born from two dwarves. But his clan accepts him anyway. Again, point of contention, possible strife, makes nothing of it. He's also haunted by the visions of a past life. Doesn't seem to really interfere with his goals, though. So, we have a character here, means well, doesn't have what he needs to really change as a character, or grow, or even kind of be, like, more interesting. There's nothing that, like, says we should really get behind this character, because what's there to get behind? There's nothing for him to do. There's nothing that motivates him. He's just going around observing history. Okay. So, I think I might have a Mary Sue. What do I do? Don't panic. Panicking is not advised. Review your character and ask yourself, do they have meaningful flaws, or are they informed or fake? Is your character's narrative arc progressing too easily? Are there things you can do to kind of throw a wrench in the works, or have them, derail their quest for improvement? Are coincidences going in their favor? And does their opposition present a meaningful threat? Always important, because it's very rare that a character runs into opposition and just trounces them immediately. Removes the threat's agency. While it's good to make the character seem powerful, being powerful is kind of like something you build up to. You can't just give it to them. And if they're part of an ensemble cast, do they get the majority of attention? This is one of those episodes where if Poochie's not on stage, people should be asking, where's Poochie? It's a Simpsons reference. So the long and short of it is, spread the love around. If your character is doing too much, give what they do to other characters in the cast. Have your protagonist step aside. Allow this Mary Sue to share the spotlight. Give the spotlight to another character. Let them kind of be the support that that a side character or a secondary protagonist needs. Because you may have a story that revolves around a central character, but develop the cast around them, because this shows that the cast around them changes them, and they also have an effect on their surrounding party. So who's this? This is Chloe Hildebrand. She's from a small town, attends a prestigious magical academy, the first in her family to do so. She's pretty, she's popular, and brilliant in both sword and sorcery, wields her father's sword with ease, and is a perennial head of the class. Her father's sword, by the way, is named Peerless. So far, before we get to parts 3 and 4, pretty, smart, popular, goes to a prestigious school, is the only one in her family. Oh, we're hitting all the marks here. We're balancing this out by making her an insufferable snob. Humility is not one of her virtues. She's better than everyone, and she knows it. To her, everything is a competition. I must demonstrate my superiority to everyone who dares challenge me. She's the meanest of mean girls. The queen bee. So her character arc is a straightforward fall from grace, a bitter humiliation, losing and having to come to grips with the fact that she's not the best at something, and she has to redeem herself. She has to ingratiate herself to the people she's wronged, and says, "Hey, this isn't easy for me to say, but I'm sorry, and I would, and I need your help." So then she realizes that she's been an awful person this entire time, which incites her to change. And again, going back to our previous points, academy uniform, boots that are resembling kind of like fashion-y sort of boots, dad's sword, pretty blonde, blue eyes, things people associate with beauty. All right. So working with characters and themes and existing designs. It's perfectly normal to take an existing archetype or design and put your own spin on it. Sonic wouldn't have his super form if it wasn't for something like Dragon Ball Z. One thing inspires the other. Perfectly normal. Was anybody at the Sonic OC panel that happened earlier? Okay, but there was one, and it's very similar. You take a character, you put your name on it. You can look up your name, the Hedgehog, on Google, and you can find all kinds. But, okay, so the trick is to try and find ways to kind of make your character stand out. So this is Amber Maricello. Per her player, she's Marisa Kirisame from Toho if she was a D&D character. Amber's design is lifted almost wholesale from her description. She is basically a Marisa Kirisame recolor. Instead of a black outfit, it's dark blue. Instead of blonde, she's a brunette. And she has the little 8-sided thing and the spell cards and all that. And on top of that, she's also an isekai character. An attempt to make her more unique in the setting, because we have to make her more unique. There's nothing wrong with being a dime a dozen person. There's nothing wrong with being ordinary. It's what you do and what you go through that makes you who you are and makes you more interesting. She uses Toho-inspired spell cards instead of scrolls, which, of course, the DM has to vet each of these spells and be like, nah, that's too powerful. That one's fine. And there's a whole lot of work that the DM has to do in order to vet this character. There's more focus on what she is rather than who she is. Per her player, her informed flaw is that she cannot cook. Yeah. Burns water. Terrible. Is there any cooking in the story? No. I've had a long sit down with this player, and I've tried on multiple occasions to get them to go outside their comfort zone and be mean and do things that would spur Amber to do more than just be bad at cooking. It's still a work in progress. Conversely, the other character, especially when put aside with her partner, her design was pitched as Little Red Riding Hood as a bounty hunter with a big bad wolf for a partner. Naturally, she is naturally capable of fitting within a DM's narrative instead of the other way around. Instead of having to figure out a way to get an isekai character to kind of adapt into a D&D world, she's part of that world already. She goes around and hunts bounties, and she's the brains, he's the brawn sort of thing. They have a very, very effective partnership. Who she is and what she does separates her from her source material. It's not a little girl. It's a fully grown woman with a crossbow instead of a basket for grandma. And the Big Bad Wolf is her ally rather than the antagonist of the story. It doesn't rely on tropes or themes to make them feel unique. Really, it's more of who she is and what she does that defines her as a character. Okay. So now that I've gone through the presentation, I will open the floor to questions and answers. There are no dumb questions, just potentially dumb answers. Yes. So the question is, just to repeat it for those, what to do with characters like elves or gnomes who live for 500 years? Where are they in their story? Where are they in their age? Their lifespan really determines what you kind of want to do. If they're several hundred years old at this point, they've probably seen a lot. A lot has happened in the world. Have those historical things change? I'm sure most of us have seen Frieren. Sort of similar thing. She's obviously lived a very long time. And one of the things that really works for Frieren is that she has very little concept of the passage of time. As an immortal, or at least very long-lived, time really doesn't have a lot of meaning. So she obviously didn't get the hint that the hero Himmel was very much flirting with her. And she doesn't realize it until after he's gone. So that's one of the ways to make a long-lived character really sort of relatable in that sense, where it's just like, oh, I didn't realize, or I don't quote the ancient magic, I was there when it was written, sort of thing. Like I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, I know a lot, but still give them things that they have to understand that are new. It's like, well, I don't understand this new magic that's coming out, or like I used to walk these woods forever and now these woods are gone. So time changes things and time changes people. That answer your question? Ah, yes. Drop subtle hints during the course of the story. Have them reference something that gives back to their experience. It's like, oh, I remember when this happened. Just kind of like an offhand sort of side comment. I remember doing this, because what their experience may lead them to try that plan again. Something very kind of short to keep your audience kind of in the now with what's going on, but you don't have to have them go very lengthy about it. Okay, like so I guess as writing a backstory for a character, just keeping things very straightforward. Pick out one or two major points, especially if you have an idea of what the campaign is going to be about. Pick points that are relevant to what's going on. You don't have to give a huge, long history, because your DM is probably not going to read it. Something as simple as this happened, and you can give names, dates, places. Just keep it very brief, and then focus on what they're doing now. Okay. Yes.
What are some good examples that you see of like emergent flaws, like flaws that happen with the character as they're kind of going through the story that weren't there from the beginning?
That's a good question. It's a handsome question. So flaws that appear during the story. When something bad happens, have it happen again. I mean, granted, it doesn't have to be something like dire or life-threatening. It could be, but it's something that could be a recurring thing that happens that they weren't afraid of before, but they sure are now. Like the someone who was, I'm tough and ready to fight all these zombies in this dungeon, comes out of it terrified of zombies. And then during that first foray into the dungeon, zombies start showing up in town. Okay. Yes.
Talk a bit about having an idea where a character's arc is going to go. How do you strike the balance of having an idea for an interesting character arc without trying to force your dungeon master to take the campaign in a very specific direction?
Another handsome question. Work with your DM. Obviously, the obvious thing is to be like, hey, what can we do? But not, you obviously want to give them something to kind of work into the narrative if possible. Obviously, it's the DM's discretion to be like, it doesn't really fit with the campaign. Can we try this? Or we'll save that for another campaign, perhaps, that more aligns with it. Really, communication is key. For once, I'm going to be a player in something instead of being the DM forever. And I've been talking to my DMs like, hey, I've got this character. He's looking for somebody. Is there a way for this character to appear? This person he's looking for can be, I'm okay with it, finding, somebody who's a villain or a minor enemy or even dead. I've got contingencies for all three. But is there a way I can kind of work that? I can just kind of throw that at you. And a DM will be, if it's applicable, they should ideally be upfront with you about it. Like, as a DM, I've had a player say, hey, I want my character to fight a great challenge. So I took one of the acts that I was writing a little further down. I put a challenge specifically for that character in there, but still gave the other players who weren't involved the ability to kind of like cheer them on, give them inspiration, kind of help them out a little bit, and to patch them up at the end of it. So there's a lot of give and take that works with it, but you can certainly, the usual, speak to your DM, figure out what's going on, and see if you can kind of get what you're looking for without derailing the story entirely. Okay. In the back.
Is it okay to ask a question from the DM perspective?
You may.
Cool, because I'm a baby DM.
That's cool.
And so I'm wondering, like, how do you give, or like, what tips do you have for giving enough information to your players so that they can develop
Yeah.
characters before that first session, or thinking about the scope of the campaign without taking away the surprise?
Right. So if you want to pitch something to your characters, to your players, give them kind of like a general overview of what's going on without going into specifics. Hey, we're dungeon crawling. Hey, this is heavily focused on combat. Or there's going to be times with a lot of heavy social interaction. So that sets up, give me your characters. Let me see what you've come up with, because that way I can work them in. If I have a character who's like, I'm looking for a great weapon, or I'm looking for, a magic item, have them, find ways. Part of it is getting feedback from your players, being like, hey, what do you guys want your characters to do? And then finding ways to take those pieces and kind of insert them where they're applicable to kind of fit them in. Figure out, okay, I can put the mystical magic weapon, I can put it in this dungeon, guarded by things they're afraid of, preferably. But again, talk to your players, get that information, force it out of them if you have to. It is okay. And do it in a way, obviously, to be like, hey, I can get a lot out of this for your character, but I need your help. Communication is a very powerful thing. We still have 17 minutes. Do not panic. It is okay. Yes. Okay. How much cool stuff can you give them? Story-wise, as a player? Okay, as a player, ideally you want to see if you can ask for moments where your character can shine. It's really up to your DM to see where it fits in the narrative. But hey, I have this. I have my character wants to do X or Y. Would that be possible? You can ask. Ultimately, it's gonna be, I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can fit it in. Like if you were to ask me that, hey, I want my character to have a moment where they fight their rival, and it's like gonna be this big one-on-one thing. Might be a little harder to do than I want my rival to show up like among a bunch of bad guys. Because one-on-one is super cool, but what about all the other players at the table? So that's always kind of like a balance you have to strike, because as the DM, you kind of, as a player, it's collaborative, so you have to work with everyone else at the table. But if you're talk to your players, you'd be like, hey, does your character have like an enemy that they want to fight? And then have them coincidentally show up at the same time as my fight has to go through, and then your characters have to work together. Like your party has the build to, I could fight your enemy and you can fight my enemy better, or I'm going to need your help and support to get through my fight, and I'll back you up for yours. So a lot of it is like kind of, I can't believe how much communication is really like before the game works out in your favor, just by kind of planning and talking things out with your other players and your DM. Yes, in the back.
Do you ever, like, as a DM, provide additional character prompts or like some kind of almost like addendum to a typical character sheet to help your players flesh
Yeah.
it out,
Yeah.
especially if they're newer players?
Yeah, give them a little history on the setting, for example, where you are, what's around, what businesses are there, what your character would be doing. Ask them, what do you want to play? Okay, I want to play a paladin. Well, maybe they're at the church, praying to their deity, who then gives them the missive to act. Or they're a rogue, they're running from the law, and they're hiding out in the tavern where things start up. So yeah, giving them little bits of little pieces of where they are, what the everything from what season it is, can be very helpful, because you could have people who play Eladrin who are entirely based around the seasons. So they can suddenly, oh, it's summer, so now I have this ability, or it's winter, I have this one now, and kind of give them that information. It's like, this is what the local economy is like. This is a well-to-do town. This is a poor town. What would your character be doing there? Yeah.
What I ask for my players, anytime I'm starting a home brew, I will ask them, give me your generic like page one backstory. I want 2 NPCs that are still alive that are important to you. I want it can be, if you're playing a Duchess, fine, make it your servant, your handmaid. If you're playing, make it your grandmother, make has these high expectations for you as your Duchess, or make it your bestie that helps you escape from whatever. It could be 2 NPCs. Doesn't mean that they'll both come up. It doesn't mean that they're going to have a big role. But then if I have things to pull from later, if
Yep.
they decide to go back to hometown and Fantasyland, that I get to say, oh, the bartender says that you see your grandmother recently and she had a bit of a cough, or whatever drama you want to start here, you now have that.
Yeah.
I bet that's helpful for the characters too, or the players too.
Because now they know, oh, I have this relation to this person.
Yeah. Yes. Going on all that.
One thing that's worked really well in the campaign that I'm running right now, the Icewind Dale module that's published comes with a section of basically character secrets that you can give out to your characters. That way, even if nothing that they wrote their backstory fits really well with the campaign, you at least given them one thing they can tie their they know does fit in the world. And it just gives them an extra little thing to tie their story and take it in a very unexpected different direction.
Yeah. That's a good point. Just giving them something that they didn't think of earlier, or something that will tie them in, like the NPCs, for example. It's always a great example. Give them someone that can show up that they can relate to, or they know, so that kind of like, hey, pay attention. This is your moment. I'm giving you a moment. Put the phone down.
Also like to have them come up with ways they're going to look for you before the campaign starts. So my current campaign is a Victorian London murder mystery vibes. Okay?
Nice. Love it.
It's wild. Like, we can hash that out later, but they're all playing nobility. So at the very least, they have all seen each other at the punch bowl at ball or at gala.
Yep.
So there is no like random strangers meeting and having that awkward like camaraderie. They all know each other. Now because they're all nobility, then there's a lot of secrets.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone has their own secrets because scandals are a thing. And that leads me to my question is, how do you deal with secrets?
How do you deal?
Or do you deal with secrets?
So secrets, like between as a DM wanting to keep them, or as between players.
I know all the secrets because I'm the DM and I need to know them. But my Duchess player and my Countess do not know each other's secrets. The players also do not know those secrets,
Perfect.
which is the goal.
Yep.
We're trying to drop in hints. It's more so a pacing and how do you drop, ways to drop what, obviously there's a lot of communication there with that.
Right.
This game in particular is, I really set myself up for way too much work. I wouldn't recommend it.
That is the challenge of the DM is you do 10 times the work of everybody else, and like 1% and like 10% of it actually gets used.
Do you have any experience in keeping secrets or running with secrets and how to reveal those to the party?
Let them occur as they may. Allow people to make the decisions and allow them to bear the repercussions of those actions. I had in an example, I had a character. We were doing a sort of time travel sort of plot, and the fact that like a sinister cult is going back into history and screwing around with things. And it's up to a plucky band of heroes who didn't know each other at first, but they had the specific magical affinity to be able to, because not just anybody can travel back in time. So they get the essentially the magic police come to them. And in Rip's case, a bottle to the back of the head got her to come along. But they had to kind of learn on the fly about each other. And during one of the later acts, so I have a DM NPC in this case. However, I'll go into DM NPCs in a second, but he was going along with the party. He was their corral, basically. They got to a point of time where his mother had died, and he didn't know how. So when he recognized where and when he was, he took off without a word. The party ended up running into people who were kind of like possessed by like some kind of awful plague and ended up killing her. So he came into town right at the time, and she's lying there dead, and she's like, oh my God, now I know what happened. Again, I kept this, a secret this entire time, and, which one of, what happened. And one of the players was like, oh yeah, I did it. And I was like, ah. So there was this big dramatic reveal at that point, and it was, like, oh snap, I didn't think, if only I knew. It's like, well, no one knew because he didn't take the time to explain things. He just ran off because he's like, I have a chance to, I don't care what happens. I have a chance to see my mother again. But to touch on the DM NPC, so DM NPCs are obviously a very touchy subject because it's very easy to be like, oh, well, I'm this big damn hero, and you all are my sidekicks because I'm the DM. A good DM NPC is just in the background. Is going to be hanging around and kind of guiding, providing hints to the party in a direction they should go if you need to. But ultimately in combat, they're either not in combat or you just be like, oh, they do this, or they do a little bit of damage, or if the party's going to die, they're going to die. Let them die. That happens. But if you have a DM NPC, again, this is a collaborative story. You want your players to feel like they're the heroes. Let them be the heroes, and you can just be the little NPC that's cheering them on. And of course, you could be very, very mean to your DM NPC as well, especially if you've ingratiated the. If the party loves this DM, it loves this NPC. It's like, oh look, little Gobby's here again. This little murder hobo, she's just running around stabbing things. Oh, it's adorable. And then the big, your big bad comes over and kills them. Suddenly, it's not so funny anymore. It's go time. You've earned this one. But that's your standard. But the trick to a good DM NPC is to remember that your heroes, your players are the heroes, and you're kind of just there to keep the plot on pace. And if they need to do something, your little NPC can kind of corral them in that direction, either by goofing up and accidentally kind of stumbling on the direction they should go for better storytelling. Because you could really get off into the weeds if you let your players go off the chain. We'll find ourselves in a complete waste. I spent 3 hours planning this entire story, and now we're off in a baking contest. Don't get me wrong, great moment. We do have a very bad thing we have to stop, though. Could we do that? Then we'll get back to the baking contest. But of course, play it by ear. You may have a session where someone can't make it. You will have a session where someone can't make it. And that is where you throw the baking contest in. And that way your character, the guy or gal who couldn't make it, or your friend who couldn't make it, I should be more gender neutral on that. Your friend who couldn't make it will come in and be like, I missed that. But that also sets up the idea that if someone else can't make it, then they get to go on that little side jaunt. So even if you have someone that's missing from the campaign for a session, which happens all the time, come up with something small, something low stakes, like social gathering, or coming in to stop a small band of goblins or something. Just something to earn a little renown in the party. I had a one person couldn't make it to a session. We ended up just kind of investigating something, and it turns out they were kind of captured by the player in question was a minotaur, kind of a simple barbarian, very food motivated. He ended up in a sideshow as the majestic bull man because he couldn't make it to this. He kind of wandered off. So his player's like, yeah, I can't make it this time. So they're like, where did he go? And it was a whole quest to find the NPC, and he's sitting in a little cage eating a sandwich. Like, hey, they paid me in money. They paid me in food to be here. This is wonderful. I love it. And they're like, get out of there. We've got stuff we got to do. I have 3 minutes. Anything else would be wonderful. Yes.
Someone who's never been a DM before, I'm in a party now that's
Yeah.
getting into a bit of like that personal conflict of where one of the characters is a noble, gives no shits about anybody, and has started basically killed somebody
Oh.
who's innocent. And we've also got another person who's not quite a paladin, but very they delved into this dungeon where we're going as part of a group to save people.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, how do you handle those kind of conflicts?
So you've got a clash of ideology. Have them fight it out. I mean, with words, obviously. You don't want to. PvP is obviously not good to do. I mean, it's possible to do well, especially when you have fun things like suggestion or other mind control spells. As a DM, I hate those spells because I have this perfect thing set up, and they can't do anything. Yep. And but yeah, obviously the paladin in your situation, being someone who wants to save people, needs to go up to that noble, grab them by the lapels, and shake them till all the coins fall out. Be like, "What are you doing? We're supposed to be the good guys."
And I think right now it's probably definitely a party split.
Oh, gee, you never split the party.
Not even that. Some of them agree with that.
Oh, you have conflict. That is beautiful. Wonderful role-play segments right there. Yeah, it's just, there's a whole bunch of, well, these people are beneath me, and the paladin is like, no one is beneath anyone. Every life is important, every life is sacred. It's like, well, that guy's wasn't. It's like, well, break his leg.
It was literally a moment where someone who was mind controlled, they were unconscious.
Yeah.
And the paladin's help us take care of him. And so we're doing that.
Oh, geez. That's a bad person. I would talk to, it's funny because you can have, as a DM, I would have somebody's family member of that person who was killed by this person be like, oh, well, we're not having that now. Yeah. But as a DM, you have a lot of levers to pull on in that regard. Have people talk it out. You can have them roll dice and be like, oh, well, you strangle him, but you don't kill him. But even in the thing where the DM where the players accidentally killed my DM PC's mother, didn't kill him. It was just a lot of, that's not going to change anything. And you were going to change the past anyway, so that's kind of a no-no anyway. It's like, I know, but that's not the point. It was a crime of passion. I don't care. But yeah, working together, it's a collaborative story, and I think you guys are having a great time.
It's making for an interesting story, for
The important thing is, are you having fun? Then that's what matters. All right. So before we break, this is my Discord, Plain White Bread. It is easy. That's my little icon, so you know it's me. I don't have a beard in this one yet because this is a relatively new thing. I'm available all the time. I have nothing better to do with my day. If you have questions, concerns, just anything, you can contact me on Discord. Thank you all for coming today. Sparkles! And